Hello everybody, welcome to this week's episode of Guns Explained. I'm your host, Cameron Porter. Today we're talking about high-capacity magazine bans. The question, should high-capacity magazines be banned? Let's talk about it. Okay, so the first thing we have to talk about before we can talk about high-capacity magazine bans are high-capacity magazines themselves. What's considered a high-capacity magazine? Well, typically a high-capacity magazine is considered any magazine that can hold more than 10 rounds of ammunition. Now these are actually fairly standard since 2004 to have 30-round magazines. This is a 40-round magazine. Even mini handguns come with 15-round magazines available, and those would also be considered high-capacity magazines. So a high-capacity magazine ban is obviously, as the name suggests, when those types of magazines are outlawed, when they're not allowed. Now there's different types. You can ban the possession of them, you can ban merely the sale of them, you can ban the usage of them. So there's different ways we can go about it, but really, when we ask whether high-capacity magazines should be banned, what we're asking is, would a high-capacity magazine ban save lives? So to figure this out, we can actually use objective data that's available to see if there is a correlation. So the most direct way to do this is going to be to take the states that have already instituted high-capacity magazine bans and compare their violent crime rates with states that do not have high-capacity magazine bans. So the states that currently have high-capacity magazine bans are California, Colorado, Connecticut, DC, Hawaii, Maryland, Massachusetts, New Jersey, and New York. And that data is from smartgunlaws.org, and here's the link. You can also check them out in our description. WorldAtlas.com provides a very succinct list ranking all 50 states from 1 to 50 based on their violent crime rate. Number 1 is the highest, number 50 is the lowest. Now, World Atlas did not include DC because DC is not technically a state, but since smartgunlaws.org included DC as an area with high-capacity magazine ban in place, we will be including them in this analysis. If DC was included in the state list, they would take the number 1 spot since their violent crime rate is actually double the highest state, which is Alaska, for your reference. So for our purposes here, we are considering DC to have a number 1 ranking. So if we look at each of the states, the 8 states and DC, and their rankings, where do they fall? So California falls on number 17. Colorado is number 28. Connecticut is number 39. DC is again number 1. Hawaii is number 38. Maryland is number 10. Massachusetts is number 18. New Jersey is number 37. And New York is number 19. So by averaging the ranking of each state, we can see whether there is a correlation between high-capacity magazine bans and violent crime. If there is a negative correlation, which means that as high-capacity magazine bans are put in place, violent crime goes down, the average of these states should be a number greater than 25. If there is a positive correlation, which means that as high-capacity magazine bans are put in place, violent crime actually goes up, then the average number should be between 25 and 1. So the average that we get when we combine these states that have high-capacity magazines is actually 23, which means that on average, the states with high-capacity magazine bans actually have a slightly higher violent crime rate than the states that do not. If the averages were exactly the same, the ranking would be 25. Now, this is a very small difference though. We're not talking about something that is statistically significant. There is no evidence in this analysis that there actually is a correlation. It's such a small correlation as to be really insignificant. And ranking, using the ranking from 1 to 50, is only one way that we can measure this. We can also look at the actual rates of violent crime per 100,000 people in these states. So if you take all 50 states and DC, the average violent crime rate in the United States is, for every 100,000 persons, 364.9. If you take the average violent crime rate for these 8 states and DC that have the high-capacity magazine bans, the average is actually 439. So the difference actually becomes much more disparate. But again, we're not talking about causality. There is no evidence that these high-capacity magazines are the cause of this violent crime. In fact, the violent crime rates could have been the cause of the high-capacity magazine bans. There's no question, we're not addressing the question of causality in this analysis, merely correlation. There are other ways that this could be tested more thoroughly. In fact, we'd encourage you, if you're interested, to go ahead and go do it. An effective way to evaluate this would be to take case studies of each of the 8 states and follow their crime trends from before the high-capacity magazine ban was put in place and then after, and see what the violent crime rate does in the years following the ban being put in place. That would be a way to more thoroughly evaluate whether there is a correlation between the two. So in our analysis here, and in a lot of the research that I personally have done over the years, there really is no correlation, positive or negative, between a high-capacity magazine specifically and violent crime. But high-capacity magazine bans are often talked about when we're trying to discuss how to reduce gun deaths in mass shootings specifically. So let's analyze that specific data real quick. In 2013, there were 288 people killed in mass shootings. The total murders for 2013 were 14,196. So that means that in the grand picture, the deaths from mass shootings amount to roughly 2% of the amount of deaths overall in the United States. Mayors Against Illegal Guns conducted a fairly thorough study and analysis of mass shootings in America, and in that analysis they touched on high-capacity magazines. Unfortunately, when they published their findings, they combined high-capacity magazines with assault weapons and published the information saying that the differences between a scenario where there is either an assault weapon or a high-capacity magazine present. They didn't isolate just for high-capacity magazines, but we dug into their data and looked at their specific research, and we were able to find that information that of the 93 incidents that they surveyed, 6 of them specifically mentioned either the presence or usage of a high-capacity magazine. Now that amounts to 6.4% of the 93 incidents that they covered from 2009 to 2013. So if we use the 2013 rate of 14,196 total murders and mass shootings making up 2% of that, then 6.4% of the 2% of the total murders are impacted by high-capacity magazines. Now that said, in the mass shootings where high-capacity magazines were used, 151% more people got shot and 63% more people died in the times when a high-capacity magazine was used. So, should high-capacity magazines be banned? It really depends on your political philosophy. But discussing whether a ban is put in place, we have to talk about real life and enforcement. And a high-capacity magazine ban actually presents a lot of enforcement problems. First, we have no idea how many high-capacity magazines are currently exist in the country because they're not tracked. You can buy a high-capacity magazine at virtually any firearm store where they're not in a state that they're not banned, and again, they're not tracked, they're not kept track of. So we have no idea how many are currently in circulation. In addition, there are already available for free online plans to 3D print your own high-capacity magazines. And as the music and film industries can tell you, once something is available online, it gets pretty hard to control it or get rid of it. So enforcement definitely becomes a major issue. So let's do a quick review here. Statistically, there is no real correlation between high-capacity magazine bans and violent crime. There is a very, very small impact that a high-capacity magazine ban could have on mass shootings if those that are perpetrating the mass shootings do not have access to high-capacity magazines. In a small number of cases, there could be some lives saved. Then that's not something that we should just discard. However, there are a lot of very strong arguments for law-abiding citizens to have access to high-capacity magazines. They are more practical for self-defense. There is obviously the sporting and recreational aspects of them, but When you're defending against multiple assailants in any situation, a high-capacity magazine is a very valuable thing to have as a law-abiding citizen. In addition, law enforcement officials are far more effective when they do have high-capacity magazines at their disposal. But you don't have to believe me. The wonderful thing is you can fact check us. We put all of our sources in the description and invite you to do more research, to learn for yourself and decide whether you personally believe that we should ban high-capacity magazines. I hope that the information I've provided has been useful, and I hope that it has encouraged you to move further in your education about the firearms issue. It's an important issue. Everyone wants to reduce gun violence. Everyone wants to reduce violent crime. The place where we disagree is how to get there. And a lot of times we disagree because we're working off of different information. I would encourage you to be as educated as you can be on the matter. Learn how firearms work. We highly encourage anyone who wants to learn more about firearm statistics, policy, or just how firearms themselves work to like and follow our Facebook page and to share this video with their friends and to continue to support us and help us grow. We'd like to throw a shout out, a special thank you to our sponsors on Patreon for making this episode and all of our episodes possible. If you want to support us on Patreon, you can do so for as little as $1 a month. You can go to patreon.com, sign up with your Facebook account, and find us. We are just Guns Explained on Patreon. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next week.